Welcome back to Killer Fun, where we explore the intersection of crime and entertainment every other week. I'm Christy.
And I'm Jackie.
And today, we are talking about Season 2, Episode 1 of the Murdaugh Murders, A Southern Scandal. So last time we talked about the first season.
Yes.
And you came into it kind of blind.
I did. I came totally blind,
Yeah.
which was good to experience it the way I experienced it.
Uh-huh.
And then, of course, I'm supposed to be talking about just episode 1 of season 2. And yet I have, of course, finished it and have lots of opinions about all the other episodes. So I'm going to do my best. We're going to have to put some boundaries around Jackie today.
Okay.
Or hello, spoiler alert. Hello.
Yeah. Well, you know. So the first season really focused on the terrible and sadly preventable accident.
Yes.
For more than half of its runtime, this boat accident that killed Mallory Beach. And now we're digging into the actual murder part of it, because that was really not a murder. That was really an accident.
It was really an accident.
And this is murder, because Paul and Maggie were shot to death at their dog kennels, and they're dead. And
They're dead. It's a murder.
It is
certain.
It was not an accident. It's not like somebody dropped the gun.
No, this was an absolute planned.
Probably, yes.
Like planned murder. And the boat accident sets up the entire defense argument.
Yep.
So it's very interesting. I can see why they had to set that up for us.
Sure.
So we really understood why the case the defense was making without having to actually listen to that sniveling defense lawyer. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
I'd much rather watch their documentary to understand what he was trying to say.
God, yeah, that's fair. So again, there's no real cast. They did have some reenactments of things.
Yeah.
But I mean, you don't really see those actors' faces or anything. And so.
No. And actually, I thought they did a good job of putting some footage in there from cop cams and things like that. So we could see some things, which was very heart-wrenching. And I don't know. Just
also, you kind of want to throttle somebody a little bit.
I mean, a little bit.
Yeah. All right. So let's recap. June 7th, 2021 was Alex's terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. He handles it way worse than the Alexander in the children's book.
That's nice. I'm already started. Okay. Whew. All right.
Alex is in the throes of dealing with criminal and civil litigation against his son, Paul, for the boat crash in 2019 where Mallory Beach perished. Alex's mother has dementia and requires care. Alex's wife, Maggie, may have been consulting with attorneys in the next town over about divorcing him. At the law office where he works, Jeannie Seckinger, CFO and COO, has found proof that Alex has been embezzling money and has chosen this day to confront Alex. While he's talking to Jeannie, he gets a phone call that his father, who's been hospitalized, is terminal. And that night, his son Paul and his wife Maggie are murdered on the family compound on Moselle Road. It was a bad day.
It's a bad day.
But this bad day, at least some of it was Alex's own doing. He's convicted in the shooting deaths of Paul and Maggie.
Yes, he is.
Yeah. It was a bad day.
Ellipsis.
That's right. So I had thoughts. So last time I had thoughts about, as I was watching and I wrote them down.
Hit me.
I did it again.
Tell me. Because I should start writing down my thoughts too. But I'm just so I just get enthralled and I forget to take notes.
That's all right.
But I'll have to do that.
Yes, because I would love to hear your thoughts about stuff. Because I'm pausing it anyway to write stuff down.
So if I just need to learn, pause it, write your thing down, and continue.
Or just to take a note on your phone. You pause it and then.
Yeah, or you know what, MST3K. I just video myself watching this.
There you go. There you go. We'll have a little silhouette of you down in the corner.
Okay, but I gotta hear your thoughts. Okay. So tell me your thoughts.
So Alex tells 911 that Paul and Maggie were shot in cold-blooded murder. before hanging up on them. Mm-hmm. And does this remind you of anybody? Because it reminded me of somebody. It reminded me of Michael Peterson, who also hung up on 911 in the staircase.
So close.
Uh-huh. Now, he did stay on the phone a little longer.
He did.
But
I feel like he did stay on the phone until he heard the sirens.
Okay.
I felt like I noticed that.
Oh, okay.
That it was like after he heard sirens, he was like, click. But I could be wrong.
Even still. They like you to stay on the phone with 911 until the police are there.
Yeah, they do.
Until EMS are there.
They do.
Yeah.
It's a hard ask. Gosh, I'd have to look up that statistic, though. How many people do?
At least 2 guilty people.
Well,
so Alex makes a point of telling police on the scene about the boat crash. He's obviously trying to lead investigators into believing that these events are connected.
Yeah.
Like, that is obvious to me. Randolph Buster Murdaugh's Jr.'s portrait had been hanging in the courtroom where Alex's trial was set to take place.
Yeah.
And I'm like, talk about an absence as a presence, that white square, because they said that the wall was lighter. I'm like, that white square is staring daggers.
It is. All I could think about was Bernie.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Okay, well, we can get into that later.
Yeah. Jury selection was challenging in the small town with a prominent defendant. And just knowing that Alex or the family won't get you excused from the jury. So I wondered how distant a relationship you could have and still be excused. Like, current dog walker.
I mean,
could they be excused? Like, he was literally paying you, but you maybe didn't see him.
Yeah.
I could see that. Or like a former favorite high school teacher.
Yeah, I mean,
like, is that?
It's a small. This is why I bring up Bernie. Because really, the prosecutors should have taken a page out of that and been like, those 50 miles are all I need to get a conviction. But he ended up getting a conviction anyway, so it didn't matter. But kind of the point is, in a small town that small with that big of a fish in it,
right?
It's hard not to be connected. So I think if your livelihood depends, I think for me that's my red line.
Yeah. That's fair. Okay, so the dog walker, excused.
Because it's part of your hustle. It may not be the main paycheck, but it's part of your hustle. And so, excused.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I feel like, but maybe the defense wants some of those people on them.
Oh, of course they do.
Right?
They want people who cannot be swayed by whatever the evidence is.
But also, the prosecutors may want it as well. Because what if they're a terrible boss?
Oh, ooh.
Right?
Ooh.
I mean, it could go either way, except that it seemed like Maggie was like really great. So,
yeah, well,
and I think that's the problem.
Yeah. Yeah, and like the dog walker probably only would have talked to Maggie.
Right, so that's why the prosecutors are like, no, because if they make it a generalization about Alex based on Maggie, then, too favorable.
Yeah. So O.J. Simpson joined the media buzz surrounding Alex's trial. Why do I care what O.J. Simpson has to say? Because if you'd asked me, I would have said, I don't care. I would not have sucked out.
Yeah, definitely not.
Nope. I wouldn't have sought out his opinion on this at all. And yet when they mentioned it, I'm like, I have to know. What he says.
Yeah. As one killer for another.
Exactly.
If that's the truth.
Oh, that's the truth.
I don't know. Okay, spoiler alert in episode 3. Oh no.
Alex was lighthearted with Becky Hill, the clerk of court, because he didn't expect a conviction.
No, he didn't.
Like, of course he didn't expect a conviction. He's white. He's rich. He's from a prominent family. And even O.J. Simpson thinks that he should get off.
Yeah. So, okay, keep going, because my boundaries are melting. Melting.
Alan Alan Wilson, South Carolina's attorney general, tells the jury that they're going to tell the story out of order and then lay it out clearly in the closing arguments. And I'm like, that is the structure of this entire documentary.
Yeah, I loved it. I love how it mirrors it.
Yes.
That's so
I did
that's
too.
so true.
Yeah.
That's so true. It does mirror the whole thing.
And the show lays out the timeline of June 7th, 2021. And the thing that stuck out to me here is that Maggie texted housekeeper Blanca asking her to pick up Capri Suns for Alex. I'm like, Alex is an adult man. It's one thing to drink Capri Suns because you're at a children's party and that's the available drink. And you're like, oh, I could have the diet soda, but you know what I haven't had in forever? A Capri Sun.
Oh.
He's an adult man drinking these by choice on a regular basis.
On a regular day. I mean, I don't know whether that makes me pity or feel sort of like, aw, that's a cute little idiosyncrasy he has, you know? Like, but also, what a wife.
I mean,
you know, like,
right.
I get it. They have a housekeeper, and a lot of us are like, okay, but all she did was text the housekeeper. Okay, listen, if we can just back up. The fact is, though, that having the privilege of the housekeeper, she was nothing but kind to this person who was able to make their life work in such a beautiful way.
Right.
Obviously showed a lot of gratitude for that privilege. And also was on top of it to say, okay, if I'm freed up from all of these duties because I have a housekeeper, here's how I'm going to take care of my family. I'm going to allow my free mind to now think about all the things that my family needs that would make them just have a joyous day.
The man whom she was considering divorcing.
She was making sure the Capri Suns were there.
Yep. Blanca made dinner for the family and then left it on the stove. And I'm like, I guess my clumsy butt wouldn't leave stuff on the stove.
Really?
I'd be like, you're going to have to warm that back up, or I'm going to put it in the crock pot so it stays warm because I trust the crock pot, but I don't trust food left on the stove.
Okay, but was it a gas stove?
I don't know.
Because I think that's the difference.
Oh, okay.
I wouldn't trust an electric top either.
Oh, okay.
Whether it's glass top or the old school coils, not at all. But I will leave something simmering on my gas.
Oh. See, and maybe I'm just a little too paranoid because I'm like, what if we get in accidents? We're gonna burn the house down because I left it on the stove.
Yeah. No, I don't know that I would actually do it. I don't know. I'm trying to think. I don't know that I've ever left the house empty and had something on the stove.
Well, and pets too. You have a dog who decides that smells really good. You have a dog who eats things when you're gone.
That decides a lot of things smell good. She has eaten whole pies. Loaves of bread.
A dozen bagels.
Yeah, a dozen bagels. And mind you, the only way we know it was eaten is A, they were missing, and all that was left was a twist tie. She ate the plastic too, mind you. Little, yeah.
Poor baby.
Yeah, the Roomba? They thought of that because somebody saw my dog and said, you know what? I bet something else could roam the floors eating everything. Everything. Except the hair. Thank you.
All right, so neither Alex nor Buster participated in the documentary. So
I thought about that.
Yeah, okay. Well, the Julia Willoughby Nason, one of the executive producers, said during the trial she was making note of who she wanted to talk to for season 2, and they tried really hard to get as many people as they could. You know, there were some red tape associated with talking to people from SLED, the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, and some people were too emotional about it to be able to talk. Some people were afraid of the Murdaughs, even still, so they didn't talk, but they had asked Alex and Buster to participate, and at the end it says that they declined or that they didn't answer, but Miss Willoughby Nason said they could have participated in a different circumstance that I don't think journalistically we were comfortable with. So that tells me they're being nice at the very end of the show and saying they didn't respond when actually Alex and Buster didn't like the way things were being handled with this documentary. And if they had agreed to do something different, they might have participated.
Like a little bit of a quid pro quo there.
Mm-hmm. And they said there's a possibility for a season 3 because despite the fact that the trial is over, that does not mean that all of the information is yet available.
Yes, I believe that to be true. Because I have opinions. I don't have opinions. I have questions.
Okay.
Right?
Sure.
Like, I have questions and I have not even enough to form a hypothesis, but enough to say I have a question that might result in a hypothesis.
Okay.
Should I chase that trail?
Okay.
Yeah, that's how I feel about that.
Okay. That's good to know. Interesting. All right. So here's hoping that no one listening has lost a loved one to murder.
Yes.
Or ever will lose a loved one to murder. But if you have, or if you do, there may be help for you.
Good.
Yes.
Good.
So the National Center for Victims of Crime has an article about it. So if you have a loved one who was murdered, they are the victim, but you are the co-victim.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
And that's valid.
Yes. And if you've got, it's complicated grief because you have not only this death that was unexpected and sad, but it's also traumatic, and there may be some stigma associated with that crime as well.
Yeah.
You know, oh, they shouldn't have been in that place, or, oh, they should have called police sooner, or, oh, that, you know, there's a certain amount of stigma around that. What could they have done? Which is kind of the reason why people like true crime, because we want to try and prepare ourselves.
Yeah, a little bit. Like we've talked about that before on the show. It's like why we want to prepare ourselves. But also it's like, it's complicated because, you know, you have that betrayal and that violation.
Yeah.
But also, like, practically speaking, like, say you have a house and you're like, okay, I'm not going to go back to that house when I was selling that house because of laws. Yeah. So, like, there's a lot of...
Yeah. Yeah. There's all kinds of stuff. So you can have financial issues because of a murdered loved one. So you have to quickly plan a funeral. There's no preparing for that kind of thing. You may have a loss of income if that person's the primary wage earner. Every state in the U.S. has some sort of victim compensation program. So, and they might provide help with funeral and burial costs or counseling expenses, all those different out-of-pocket things. So you want to keep those receipts, which sounds like so
terrible,
clinical, and like cold.
But thank you iPhones and like smartphones in general.
Right? Yeah, you can take pictures.
Just take pictures of stuff and then like get rid of it. Yeah, and just keep it on your phone so that when you're ready to deal with it.
Yes. So if you want to find out what kind of services are available in your area, you can go to ovc.ojp.gov/directory-crime-victim-services.
Wow, they make that hard.
They do not make it easy.
But we're going to link to it.
We are going to link to it.
So we got you.
Yeah.
We got you.
So go visit the socials. That link will be there. Hopefully you never need it. And there's some additional information from Everytown for Gun Safety.
Ooh, I'm a part of that.
Yeah, it's wonderful, wonderful organization. So if you were at present when that person was murdered and you're injured and you don't otherwise have like medical insurance, there's help with that too.
That's great.
So in addition, one of the things that can, especially if it's your home where the crime has occurred, most states will offer some sort of crime scene cleanup, which the Murdaughs declined, even though it was offered to them in South Carolina, which is interesting to me. If you have travel costs for court proceedings, if you need to move for your own safety or your own health, those are things that might be included in these victim reimbursement programs. Or crime victim compensation programs. They are reimbursement based.
Okay.
So you have to outlay the money. Unfortunately, that does make it harder for lower income people to be able to handle this stuff. And then you have to hope that some of it will be recouped.
But I mean,
you've got to do it anyway. Hopefully there's
you got to do it anyways. Call your credit card companies.
Yeah.
Because they might be able to issue certain credits.
Sure. And help
certain
you out.
Credit cards that you may not normally be
They might
eligible for.
Right.
And then that way, you can submit all of that.
Right. And have a little more time to pay. And the eligibility varies state to state. So if there's another way for you to be reimbursed for that particular expense, like you have medical insurance, you're probably not going to get reimbursed for that. Still keep those receipts. It's worth trying.
Yes, it is.
And most crime victim compensation programs require that the crime is reported to police and that you cooperate with them.
Yeah, so FYI.
So make sure that you're doing that. Save all your receipts. I mean, it's awful that you have to go through that.
But
I'm
glad that these organizations are coming alongside.
Exactly. And if you look on that other website, the ovc.ojp.gov website, and you don't find anything in your area, there is the National Association of Crime Victim Compensation Board that might have additional help.
Okay.
So you can go to nacvcb.org.
Okay. We'll link to that too.
Yeah.
Good Lord, these websites.
I know.
Everybody's taking all the good website names.
Well, and you probably don't have anybody very creative.
It's true.
They're like, this is the name of our organization. This makes perfect sense to us.
It's true, but that is going to change. I guarantee that's going to change in about a decade after true crime has been what it is. And now all of us creatives who love being a part of this community, and then we're going to go get onto these boards. We're going to change stuff. Yeah. But every town, they're not old. So I feel like, come on, y'all.
Oh, well,
what's the Every Town?
That's Every Town.
What's the Every Town website? Let's check that because they're not that old. I don't know. I get their texts. That's how I communicate with them.
Everytownsupport.org.
But see, it's the support.
I'm sorry. Everytownsupportfund.org.
See, this is what they're all relying on Google. Just Google these things. But that's what it is. They're relying on Google to actually push up the actual website, the actual URL.
Right. But we could have URLs that are more creative.
We can. And that's why we're going to link to them because we're going to help them out.
That's right.
Okay.
So even after the second season of Murdaugh Murders aired, there are still some questions unanswered. So this particular article from Insider was written after the first season dropped. So there are some things in here that are covered in the second season. And I'm not going to talk about those. I'm going to talk about other things.
Okay.
This is where we learned that it was 7 minutes after Alec called 911 that he hung up. Okay, so it was not immediate. If you listen to the 911 tapes at the staircase,
it was immediate.
It was pretty fast.
Yeah,
he was he had things he wanted to say, and he wanted to say nothing more.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
So Alex stayed on a little longer. So maybe it's not that fussy, but he did hang up on them because he wanted to call people. So he called his brother Randy and John Marvin. He tried to call Paul's friend, Rogan Gibson, whom they were holding the dog for, which is why they were at the kennels.
Yeah.
Interestingly, Buster didn't get a call until 10:44. He called 911 just after 10 p.m., stayed on the phone for 7 minutes. So generous. He hung up on them at 10:10 maybe. And 34 minutes before he called his son. I get maybe calling somebody a little closer because Buster was a couple 100 miles away.
Was he? Was he now?
This is the reports.
I know. I have opinions.
And that phone call to Buster did not come until he'd opened a group text message, called a videographer he barely knew, and Googled a restaurant in the little town where they had a second home. All those people and all those things happened before Buster got a phone call.
I have opinions. I have so many thoughts. I have questions.
Do you want to go into those questions?
Eventually.
Okay.
Eventually I do.
Okay.
I do. I want to say these things, but I mean, it's such a freaking spoiler alert.
Okay. Well, then we'll do it at the end.
Yeah. Like, we'll do it.
All the way to the end.
Yeah.
Friends.
But I'm hoping that as you hear me and my burning questions, you'll go back and watch the first one. Make sure you've watched the first one and then go on.
Yes.
Because you need to. You need to.
Yes. So law enforcement did have a warrant to search the house the day after it happened, and they didn't execute it. They also didn't do a detailed search between the young Murdaugh's house and his parents' house.
Yeah, I feel like that's a law enforcement problem, not a conspiracy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like there's a difference between a conspiracy and the fact that they were lazy because it was the Murdaughs.
Yeah, I think
that's
fair.
I feel like that is a long established history.
Right.
Of they feel like they know them so well, they don't need to do these things.
Right.
And then they just don't do these things because other things feel kind of cut and dry. And so I feel like detectives on the ground probably were like, why don't we need to do all that? Like, we know these people. And so I don't know that it's a conspiracy as much as it is a failure of policy.
Right. That's fair.
Yeah, that was my take on it.
Yeah. But it wasn't really answered why they didn't do that.
No, and that's the thing. I think, and maybe I'm giving the documentarians a little credit here with that.
Sure.
They didn't pull that thread because there was nothing to pull at. It was just a failure of policy and the predictable outcome of a small town situation where everybody's so connected that like certain detectives don't need to walk through the house because they're like, we were here yesterday. I don't know, like for whatever, you know, or you know what I mean?
Here
like
recently, or we know them, or
a sense
whatever.
of familiarity.
Sure.
And that is something the Murdaughs could hide behind, is that sense of familiarity.
Right.
Or that could be a straw man.
Sure.
Right?
That's fair.
We could think of them not doing that as a conspiracy when in fact it was just failure.
Right.
But also the Murdaughs could hide behind that familiarity, trusting that they're going to be safe from that. But also assuming that to be the case is just as much of a straw man as the fact that they didn't actually do the search.
That's super fair. Okay. I will also give the documentarians a little credit because this article is a little annoyed because they didn't answer what the motive was behind Alex killing Paul and Maggie.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot.
There wasn't a lot. Now, there was the criminal charges against Paul that were about to bring Alex's finances into light. And, you know, he maybe was trying to put a stop to that, but there's not really a lot of evidence that says that he was going to really benefit financially or otherwise from their deaths.
Oh, that's what like, okay, so they died and then he thinks that because of that, that's going to take attention off his embezzlement. And that doesn't make any sense. I think a guy that smart, you know, can tell that like, well, you know, our son was being reckless. We'd like to keep him out of danger, but there's no danger to Alex about all of that.
Right.
Right. I mean, that would, and even if there was a danger, killing Paul doesn't make any sense because it would just heighten the attention. Whereas before, okay, let me put it this way. If Alex was as cocky as he was walking in that courtroom for a double murder, I feel like he wasn't going to freak out that much about the embezzlement charge.
Okay.
Right? I mean, it took his CFO. She was a CFO, right?
Yeah. CFO and COO. She had a double title.
I mean, it took her that much to bring something so that he could bring it up to him. And even in that conversation, as they depicted it, and that could be wrong, but per her kind of testimony and per the representation, it didn't even go that poorly.
Right.
Like, it got interrupted, but it's not like he lost it.
No.
So we don't know about that yet.
Right. That's very interesting.
You know?
Yeah. Hey, Jackie. Sleep is so important to our bodies and our mental health, right?
Oh, I'm super passionate about this.
I do, because it can be really difficult to get a good night's sleep.
Well, especially with our culture the way it is, like, oh, I'll sleep when I'm dead. No. You'll be dead because you don't sleep. That's how that works.
That's right. We want to get at least 6 or 7 hours of sleep a night, right? Because,
for your general adult, that is exactly what we need.
Yeah.
Sleep hygiene is everything. And I get really nerdy about this, like really fast. So I'm so sorry. But sleep hygiene is so important. And so having a routine that helps us get into our sleep, super important.
And that is why we are delighted to be telling you today about our new sponsor, woohoo, Host Red Ad. We're talking about Beam Dream. This is a supplement. It's all natural. Man, it's just so great.
It's delicious and it helps us with our sleep hygiene. So
today, our listeners get a special discount on Beam's Dream Powders, their best-selling hot cocoa for sleep with no added sugar. We know how important that is.
No added sugar and no allergens.
That's right. It's available in delicious seasonal flavors like cinnamon cacao, sea salt caramel, and white chocolate peppermint. Better Sleep has never tasted better. And it is so tasty.
It is really tasty. It's yum yum. It's like dark chocolate. It's delicious.
Uh-huh.
And as someone who has a dairy thing, I can't do dairy. So I don't get to eat chocolate a whole lot.
I know.
This was yum.
And you can mix this into water or milk. It's just delightful. A recent clinical study revealed Dream helped 93% of users wake up feeling more refreshed, and 93% reported that Dream helped them get a more restful night's sleep. So if you want to try Beam's best-selling Dream Powder, take advantage of their biggest sale of the year, up to 50% off for a limited time when you go to shopbeam.com/killerfun. The discount is applied at checkout, so there is no code necessary. It could not be easier. That's shopbeam, BEAM.com/killerfun for up to 50% off.
And for a killer night's sleep. So here's how it works. Christy wrecks her search history. Hey, an essay. We promise it's nothing more nefarious than a podcast. To find out what's true, some of the psychological motivations behind the characters' actions, and real-life applications that relate to our topic. I have no idea what Christy decided to look up. Could be the same thing that captured my curiosity or something I never thought of.
Is it true? So there are a few things to be verified this time. Last time there wasn't a whole lot that we could verify.
So true.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So we're going to spend some time clarifying and verifying this time.
I like this.
All right. So the last time that I talked about the PMPED, Pimped or Pumped.
Oh, yeah.
Law firm.
Okay, yeah.
Depending on who you ask, the PMPED law firm was over 100 years old.
Oh, right. Okay.
It's not over 100 years old anymore.
Wait, what?
January 4th of 2022.
Okay.
They announced that they were dissolving PMPED and reforming as Parker Law Group after a partner who's been there 50 years. They just took all the names out.
They didn't just rename it. They dissolved it and restarted.
My understanding, yes.
So,
oh no, it says it's transitioning. So I don't know. I don't know exactly.
Yeah, this is a bit of a
But they're getting rid of the Murdaugh name in it. They want no Murdaugh name in it whatsoever.
Interesting.
Except Randy Murdaugh IV is still a partner.
Okay.
So they're not completely divorcing themselves of the Murdaughs.
But
he's
still a partner.
He's still a partner.
Okay.
But the name no longer includes the family.
Interesting. how Better Call Saul.
I know.
This is such a situation.
Exactly.
It really is.
There's no Jimmy McGill anymore.
No.
It's Saul Goodman. Saul Goodman.
Saul Goodman.
So they took Alex's grandfather's portrait off the wall, as we mentioned before, for his trial. Did it get put back up?
I don't know. Did it?
I wanted to know. Like, so fast.
Oh my gosh. Really?
Yeah. They sentenced him on a Friday. And the portrait of Randolph Murdaugh Jr., who was the 14th Judicial Circuit solicitor from 1940 until 1986, was back up on Monday.
Oh, how about that?
They were like, we can't look at that hole any longer.
No. And somebody was like, get this out of my office. It was probably Becky Hill. She was like, get this out of my office. I'm done with it.
Yes.
It's fair. Taking it down seems so like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Like that's going to change things, but okay.
Yeah.
Please.
So the family, after the murders, claimed Paul had been threatened online and in person for his role in Mallory's death.
Okay. I have a growing amount of sympathy.
Okay.
For Paul.
Sure.
Like a growing amount, especially listening to Anthony talk. Right?
Yes.
And you could see it that night. They comforted each other that night. You could see it on the dash cam video, right? Like there was an anger, but there was also a comforting because nobody ever thought that Paul was insane.
Right.
They just always thought that he was neglected in a way.
Or made poor choices.
And made poor choices. They always had a soft spot in some ways. I know the girlfriend didn't because he was violent.
Right.
We have the privilege of being away from that enough that we can see sort of like the why he was that way kind of story. So I get that. Like that was toxic for her. And even still, she was
like super sweet about him. And later, later episodes, she's talking about how like she felt like he kind of came and visited her.
Yeah.
Because she thought about him and she hadn't thought about him in a while. She was like, he would be so proud of me and how well I'm doing.
Yeah.
And
like there was a very reconciled view of his overall behavior.
Sure.
Right? Because kids are dumb.
Yeah.
All kids like profile is sociopaths. All of them. They're all sociopaths. 100%. But in some ways, like it's nice to see that the friend groups can kind of go through that with each other and sort of come out of it. And he lived in the most extreme circumstances, being in extreme privilege, right? And having to negotiate that to solidify his values.
Yeah.
And it seemed like after the boat accident, he did. That he solidified his value, or he was in the process of solidifying his values.
Sure.
You know,
he still went boating and drinking.
He did. But he also took his friend's dog and took his mom out to the kennel because we're hanging out with mom. So there's that. You can see that like what would he have become?
Yeah. Yeah.
He would have become somebody who was probably pretty grounded and could use his youth for the betterment of others.
Sure. I mean, whatever he did, he didn't mean to kill Mallory.
No.
He was stupid.
He behaved
poorly. It was preventable. And yet it didn't really seem like any of his little friend group really held it against him that much. I'm sure they like pulled away some, but I mean, they understood that's who he was.
Yeah.
And
we all know that alcoholism, which he clearly had.
Sure.
is just detrimental.
Yeah.
You know.
Absolutely.
I think they held a lot of really mature space for him.
Yeah.
You know, and that's hard. That's hard to see such a young life be affected that way.
Yeah.
You know.
That's fair. Well, John Marvin Murdaugh and his brother, Randy Murdaugh IV, who's, at Parker Law Group now, went on Good Morning America and did an interview and said, John Marvin said, I didn't think it was a credible threat, online threats. If it was, I would have tried to do something or notify someone, but I guess maybe I made a mistake.
Oh. But also that seems very like coloring a story.
Also seems to me like we're doing this interview to create this sort of alibi and a faceless scapegoat.
Yeah.
For their murders.
Like an alternative. Like they're supporting the defense story.
Right.
By trying to say that other people felt this way.
Right. And Randy said, I really don't know of any enemies. You hear this talk on social media with regard to Paul, but I don't know anybody that would truly be an enemy or who would want to harm them. Mm-hmm. I can't find any evidence whatsoever that these threats actually existed. They didn't tell law enforcement. They didn't take screen captures of anything.
No, of course
this is what you do.
But they felt untouchable, right? Like they felt like Paul obviously took it hard. Yeah. Because he became sort of depressed and more alcoholic, right? So like, and his friends noticed that he felt awful, that he was dealing with guilt, but his family didn't exactly get him therapy either.
Right.
So like, I think that's a very unique subculture of the super wealthy.
Yeah.
And the super powerful.
Yeah.
Is that they don't do outside help.
Right.
You know, for anyone, none of their sons.
Morgan mentions that she and Maggie were close for the 4 years that Morgan and Paul dated, and Maggie told Morgan a story that Morgan understood to be a warning. Alex's mother, Libby, who remember had dementia, was considering divorcing Alex's father, Randolph III. Randolph published Libby's obituary as a threat.
Yeah.
It really ran.
It really ran?
It was in the Hampton Guardian newspaper on November the 18th, 1976.
Oh my God. They ran it?
He really ran it. Mrs. Elizabeth A. Murdaugh, wife of 14th Circuit Assistant Solicitor Randolph Murdaugh III, died Wednesday at her home.
My gosh.
Then he goes on to list all her accolades. Surviving are her husband, her parents, a daughter, Lynn, 3 sons, Randy, Alex, and John Marvin, a sister, a brother, maternal grandmother, 3 nephews, and a niece. Plans will be announced by the funeral home. He ran this. Now, they can't confirm who actually submitted it for publication.
That's so interesting. Mm-hmm. Did they retract it? Could they, can you retract such a thing? I don't even know.
I mean, you pay to have it run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't care.
I don't know. But as far as we know, Libby's still alive. We know she was alive in 2021 because Alec drove over to see her.
Yeah. So, okay. Am I wrong? Didn't they talk about how there was one written for Maggie?
Oh, I don't remember that. Maybe.
It was never run, but there was one written. And that was the whole thing, was that they ran one. But I don't remember. Somebody has to correct me with that. But I remember thinking that was also a threat. And that when Maggie was talking to Morgan, right? That was the warning that Maggie gave, was that my obituary is written.
Oh, I don't remember hearing that.
And so that was like a warning to Morgan.
Yeah, like get out while you can.
Get out while you can.
Oh, God. Oh. Ugh. So in the recap, part of Alex's really bad day was being confronted by the firm's CFO for embezzlement.
Yeah.
He was actually charged with many financial crimes. Ugh. So in May of 2023, he was indicted for wire fraud, bank fraud, money laundering on many, many counts for stealing millions of dollars from clients over 16 years.
I mean, that's just awful.
Yeah, awful. He would have law firm employees get settlement checks and make them out to Palmetto State Bank. And then they would deposit those funds and use them for personal loans, cash, other personal expenses. He also embezzled by siphoning money off of prosecution expenses. I mean, really awful. And then in September, he pled guilty to all 22 federal counts of bank fraud, wire fraud, money laundering.
That's interesting.
Dick Harpootlian, who was his attorney for the trial, wanted to point out he did not argue with a single fact. He did not argue with me to push back on any allegation. Let me tell you why. They wouldn't say if he was going to plead guilty or not to the state charges, which he's supposed to go November 27th, 2023. That trial is supposed to start. They have filed a motion to have that delayed for a year due to unprecedented media coverage.
Oh, interesting.
Okay. And then Harpootlian said, there's two things Alex will tell you. One, that he did steal the money. Two, he did not kill Maggie and Paul.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty I feel like that's common.
Yeah.
Based on what we've seen is that, like, okay, let's make it clear that, like, when he's guilty, he's guilty. And he's a bad financial person.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean he's a murderer.
Right.
Is what he's trying to paint.
Right.
This picture
of
that,
course
like,
they are.
You know, and I'm like, oh my God, you didn't have to steal your money. You obviously were pretty decent at the actual job that you did. Just raise your rates.
Yeah.
God mercy. Why? That's complicated. Who had time for that?
Yeah.
I ain't got time for that.
No.
I ain't got time for that. To be good at my job and a fantastic, complicated criminal when it comes to math.
Yeah.
Mathy criminals amaze me. Mathy criminals.
You need yourself a Saul Goodman to launder your money for you.
But at least he was a little bit more straightforward.
Sure.
Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's a lot of work he put in. And I'm like, you could have just raised your rates, man.
Well, he's trying to...
I think he enjoyed it.
Oh, of course he did. That was the whole point.
I think that's the thing. He enjoys it.
That's the whole point. But they're trying to put out publicly that he didn't do it because they're trying to get a retrial, of course.
Of course.
Listen to why they're trying to do it. Because they claim that Becky Hill, the clerk of court, tampered with the jury.
Okay, whatever. I think he's trying everything he can to get out of being convicted.
Well, I think what he's trying to do is get enough doubt for a retrial, and then he's still going to probably spend the rest of his life in jail, in prison. Prison. He's trying to get to a nicer prison.
Yeah, he is. I think he's still. Well, okay. See, I have my thoughts, and I'm gonna hold them.
Okay, that's fine. All of the sources that we use to inform our discussion here on Killer Fun Podcast can be found on our social media. Join us on Facebook at Killer Fun Podcast, exploring the intersection of crime and entertainment. You can find us on Twitter at Killer Fun Pod, or you can send us an email at killerfunpodcast@gmail.com, and I'd be happy to share a link to whatever information you're looking for. We love to hear from you. You might learn a little something too. So, psychology break. All right. So, we're going to talk about a few little things. Police were suspicious of Alex in the murder of Paul and Maggie, in part because of his body language.
Yeah.
We're going to take a little journey on body language here.
Yeah.
I have 3 different articles talking about things. So, they said that they just attributed it to trauma to start with.
Yeah.
And then they went back and watched the body cam footage and the initial interview footage and said something wasn't right and that they felt like he was not telling the truth. Detective Laura Rutland said, when Murdaugh first described Paul breaking down, at first I thought it was a genuine emotion and genuine trauma. Of course, now I know he was traumatized, but not by what he found, but by what he'd done. And I'm like, okay. Well, let's find out what some of those tells as to lying, what they might be.
Well, yeah. I mean, cue the Paul Ekman. I get it.
Yeah.
You know, like, I get it with the whole, but you have to be an expert.
We're going to get there.
Okay.
Okay.
So, you have to be an expert.
Yeah. So CNBC had an article by Vanessa Van Edwards, who is a self-professed body language expert.
Oh, really? Self-professed, huh?
I believe so. She does work she is the head researcher of human behavior at a research lab called Science of the People. I don't know how much credence that actually
I don't know, but let's hear.
I read a number of articles. This was the one that was the most concise that I thought was like legitimately might have information easily laid out that we could help us.
Well, because I have to tell you, I'm a kind of a super fan of Paul Ekman, and I've read the books, and I obviously I'm not an expert,
right?
And I'm not an expert because I haven't gone through the training,
right? And Paul Ekman does the micro.
Yeah, he does. He was groundbreaking in the research that established the universal emotions that showed that all people groups from regardless of culture seem to have a biologically driven emotional expression for what has become 16 emotions. Really started kind of with 8, and they've sort of subdivided into 16.
Okay.
And you get your kind of your feelings wheel involved eventually. But like he was the one who really identified some of those micro differences.
Okay.
And of course, then it was dramatized in this thing called Lie to Me.
Yeah.
Which was a fabulous, fun show. And he was actually he was like I don't know that he was a producer. Let me not say that. But he was consulted. He was one of the consultants on the show to make sure that it was, at least plausible. And they do trainings on this. Yeah. Okay. And I think there are some things that are pretty standardized, but just like we said with the video, it's just one more witness.
Right. Okay. Yes. So all of the articles that I read talking about this, the very first thing that they said that you need to do is determine a baseline.
Yeah.
When you're talking to a person under normal, non-traumatizing, non-stressful, non-threatening conditions.
Right.
You can't do that unless you're able to see that person in non-threatening conditions.
Right.
So then she said that once you've done that, then you can look for red flags. Now she is talking about relationships, I think.
Oh, okay.
Primarily.
Okay.
I think that's where this is coming from.
Right. Okay.
And, child, coworker, spouse, somebody right? So some red flags could be lip pursing, which would be that they're trying to withhold information. If they ask a question where it rises at the end, it means that they're maybe not as confident about what they're saying. That could be an indication of lying or just that they don't know. A lack of contractions. People
being too formal
and too emphatic.
Yeah. So this is some research that's out there for sure. Yeah.
Sure. Sudden distancing if they take a step back or lean away from you. The fear micro expressions that we mentioned that, you might have the upper white of your eye showing can be a sign of that. Wrinkles in the forehead. There's a number of them.
Yeah.
But what I found actually helpful is not only that you have to have a relationship with this person to be able to recognize these things, but don't take a single red flag as a sure sign that someone's lying.
Yeah, like look for a pattern.
A cluster of them. Yes. More than one thing.
Yeah.
May indicate lying.
Yeah.
It may indicate that they're having tummy trouble.
I mean, that's the thing. Right. I mean, there are some others that people notice that are a little bit more attributed to emotion. So, for instance, flaring the nostrils is more of a disgust. If you're noticing that through a conversation, that's a red flag to consider along with other clues. But because there's not really much else to be flaring nostrils at, unless they just literally have some allergies, in which case, okay, fine. But, so like, those kind of things. But there are some of those body language things we know about, like crossing your arms. But I cross my arms all the time. It means nothing. It means I have back pain.
Yeah.
Actually. So,
And that's it. If you're sitting in an uncomfortable chair, there was a paper written for Frontiers in Psychology in December of 2020 that basically said there are some things that you can understand, but it's not generally very good.
Yeah.
That there isn't any reliable single or even set of indicators that will indicate that a person is lying if you don't know them. I mean, that's the thing. And like you said, there's all these different factors that could be at play. They looked at a database of 25,000 veracity judgments showed that the average score of chance of determining if somebody was lying was 54%.
Gee,
okay.
Flip a coin.
Right. Basically.
I mean, right.
Basically. And that the professions that you might expect to be better at this, psychiatrists, recruiting interviewers, police investigators, did no better. Even with training, they did basically no better than chance.
Yeah, I know. Dr. Kahneman talks a lot about this. He has a book out called Noise.
Okay.
And they really they establish the difference in poor judgment between like bias, which I think we all understand better, and the issue of noise.
Right.
And that's where that lies, is the issue of noise.
Yeah.
The only thing I'll say is that, like with the Murdaughs, definitely these detectives knew them better. Right. And then in other cases, even though the science doesn't back it, I get that detectives do have a weird gut about things.
Sure.
And it's not something they can pin on one factor. They are taking in information at a different level than we are. So when they have a gut about something, it's probably a bunch of different things that are giving them that indication.
Right.
And so I don't disparage them at all being like,
No.
my gut says that we're not getting the true info, because something about that seems to have some expertise to it.
Right.
But also what drives a lot of them is that they're supposed to chase every rabbit. So they're supposed to be skeptical of everyone. So of course they think everyone's lying.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's your job.
Yeah. And also suspects that they're talking to don't know what the investigators know.
Yeah.
So if they're
Exactly.
talking about something and they're like, oh, you're lying.
Yeah.
I know you're lying because
I know.
I just looked at this evidence that says you're lying.
Exactly.
So what else are you lying about?
Right,
So
exactly.
Like literally that might be the only thing that they're lying about. But now
nevertheless,
everything else they're skeptical of.
Right, exactly.
As they should be.
As they should be.
Yeah.
Chase the threads.
So Morgan and Paul were high school sweethearts and they didn't make it, which is fine. Good, probably better for everybody involved. And that's pretty normal psychology today, what it takes for high school in love relationships to last. But basically the thing that Morgan and Paul didn't have was a interest in the three parts of the relationship: me, you, and us. So Paul was a little too focused on me.
Right.
Morgan was maybe a little too focused on
Us,
you
maybe,
or
or
us.
us,
She
yeah.
wasn't thinking about herself. Enough for this to really be a healthy relationship.
True.
So you have to get beyond the infatuation stage, which it seems like they had done.
Yeah.
But there were other factors that were.
There were other factors because they're not normal.
Yeah.
Right. They have just so much.
Right. And then Medium suggested that's really probably not the ideal anyway. We shouldn't be looking to necessarily, that's not the ideal to marry your high school sweetheart, because you really, if you don't know who you are, it can be disastrous in your relationship and just cause a lot more pain, and that you want to be able to know who you are on your own, have some autonomy outside of the relationship.
Yeah. Which I also, I have questions about. Like, I wonder, like, how much more important is that for women than men? I think, women are the ones who tend to, in a relationship, not figure out who they are at the same time that they're figuring out the us. Whereas it seems men are able to do that. And,
Right.
I get, yeah.
So
I it's sad because I feel like really it's our culture that has made it less, the patriarchy has made it less so, for women to be able to do this.
Right.
Whereas men actually might really benefit, because there is something to be said for growing up together.
Sure.
And the us part of it that it creates, as long as each individual is growing and developing. Because when you're with somebody, you may end up in a situation that you never asked for, because the two of you together unfolds a whole world of possibilities that you individually don't. Right. So that should be an adventure.
Yeah.
It should be an adventure and it should be fun. But unfortunately, what it ends up to be is that so many women end up just putting themselves aside to go on the man's adventure as their token.
Yeah.
And so that, I feel like that's a patriarchy screwing that up.
I like that. Or I hate that.
I
but
hate that.
I like the thought of it.
Yeah.
I like the theory of it.
Those are my questions. Is how much is it patriarchy and culture versus an actual like high school sweethearts could have the adventure of their life because they get to grow up together.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. I also got married young. That's my bias.
I mean,
I'm not super young.
Same.
College. College.
Yeah. I mean, I was
not high school sweethearts, but college.
Yeah, college sweethearts for sure. But
college age anyway.
Yeah.
Because my husband was military, not in the college, but
right.
It's different.
Yeah. I mean, I was 18 when I met my husband. But we dated a long time.
Yeah.
Before we got married.
Yeah. Because how old were you all when you got married?
I was 22.
Okay, so same.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah, he's a little older.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I was 22.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fine. I felt very, very mature, especially since we didn't have a baby for 5 years. And that was like perfect for us. I mean, we did all of the growing up adventures.
Yeah, I tried.
Yeah.
But
yeah, things happen.
But things happen. So, it's all good.
Real life. So most evidence in Alex's Murdaugh trial was circumstantial, but that doesn't mean it's not good evidence.
I know.
So there's two types of evidence. There's direct evidence, which would be like
smoking gun,
your fingerprint. Somebody saw you do it. You got caught on the Ring doorbell.
Right, exactly.
There's DNA. We have the gun with your fingerprints on it. Yep. And all of those things. Then there's circumstantial, which is derived from knowing something and taking the logical next step.
Creating a logical argument.
The example that they give in the show is, you go to bed and there's no snow.
Right.
And you wake up in the morning and there's snow on the ground.
It's actually circumstantial
evidence. Actually circumstantial evidence that it snowed overnight.
Right. You didn't see it happen.
Yeah, you didn't see it happen. You didn't feel the snow.
But you can still walk outside on your own without watching the news.
Right.
And seeing evidence of it.
Right.
And make a logical conclusion.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
I get it.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand that, but also.
And again, you have like a lot. You need. It can't be the only thing.
Yeah.
Right. Like
there's no other explanation for snow on the ground.
Right.
So it makes it very strong circumstantial evidence.
Right.
The question is whether the circumstantial evidence leaves a reasonable doubt.
Right.
Remember, this is not a shadow of a doubt.
Right.
This is a reasonable doubt.
Right. There is no reasonable doubt that somebody rented a snow machine and sprayed it all over the entire neighborhood.
No, it would be ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Alex's trial wasn't the only one in a small town plagued with jury issues.
Please talk about Bernie.
I wish I'd thought of it. But no, this one's sadder.
Oh, no.
The trial for the 3 white men who murdered Ahmaud Arbery in Georgia was similarly complex. They were in Glenn County, Georgia. They had a small population, 85,000 in the whole county. They sent out 1,000 jury summons. They sent out 900 in the Murdaugh trial. And they also, some of these people were pretty close to and still not able to get off the jury. So there was a woman who works in a hospital, and her husband and father-in-law knew one of the defendants. That wasn't enough.
That wasn't enough.
Not enough. Then there was another guy who said he's a friend of my father's and he's been over to our house multiple times. I don't know if that one got dismissed or not, but one who did was Ahmaud Arbery was her third cousin.
Oh.
And she grew up in the house with
defense would be like, get her out of here.
Yeah, exactly. This guy didn't get dismissed because he was a mechanic and he was in a hunting club with one defendant and had known another defendant because that defendant repaired small engines and so they'd work together.
Okay.
So he knew 2 of the 3 and they were like, no, you can still be impartial if you listen to the...
Wow, that's
I was
interesting.
like, wow.
Of course, I mean, you have to pick your battles.
Right.
Right. And so if there's certain people that are like, oh my gosh, get them out, you might have to make a compromise on something like that.
But yeah, just knowing them, probably none of those people ended up on the jury.
Yeah.
Probably not. But it wasn't a automatic dismissal.
It wasn't automatic. Get out.
Too
biased. Go back.
Yeah. So I normally like to end on a lighter note, and there's not really like a lighter
there's not,
note.
Except for my hot take.
We're going to get there in 1 second. So this is more of a justice served sort of situation.
Ooh.
So, so Mallory Beach died in the boating accident.
Right.
Because Paul was very, very drunk. And Parker's, a convenience store chain, where Paul used his fake ID and his mother's credit card to buy alcohol that he should not have been able to buy. They have settled with the Beach family for $15 million.
Good.
Yes. It does not bring her back.
No, but good.
Yes. And that's the thing. It's like, it's so hard to be like...
Ugh. But also... Yeah. That you're right. There is some justice there.
And the other crash survivors, Connor, Morgan, Anthony, and Miley, all are also getting settlements.
Good.
So good for them. They're going to get something to start their lives off.
Okay.
Yeah. And really, the insurance company for Parker's said that they wanted to do a settlement because they didn't believe that a jury was going to really make the connection that this wasn't punishment for Alex Murdaugh and his behavior and covering things up, that they were likely to get far larger awards had they gone to trial because people want to punish Alex Murdaugh.
Right.
And not understanding he's not the one paying this. This is Parker's.
Right. Yeah, exactly. No, that makes sense.
All right. So tell me your hot take.
Oh my gosh. All right, here's my killer take. Here we go. Now, these are my questions, but my killer take is...
And this is all speculation, not slander.
Absolutely.
And just like wild rabbit chasing, right?
A little bit, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I just don't slander.
Not
slander, but questions.
Okay.
I don't know for sure that I believe 100% that Alex did this.
Okay.
Or at least that he did it alone.
Okay. I would say I don't think he did it alone.
A lot of people believe that he didn't do it alone.
Even if he did the shooting alone.
There was definitely,
Yeah.
But I mean, the premeditation, the desire to kill Maggie and Paul, I don't know that I really believe that there was a good motivation for that.
Okay.
So here's the thing. It's so hard to say. I think Buster is involved.
Oh, do you?
It felt like, I feel like when I was watching it, right? And I'm looking at the things. What I see is a dad almost covering up quickly and trying to make things right because he knows his son did it.
Oh.
Because I think he thought, I can clean it up and I can take the heat and I won't be convicted.
Oh, and he misjudged.
And he misjudged. I think he misjudged.
Okay.
And here's the thing. Buster, we don't know anything about him and his motives. I get it.
Right.
But also, Buster being the firstborn, all the pressure, he didn't get any of that love, sort of that family hug.
Okay.
That Paul did as the baby who was the wild one who needed help.
Okay.
I think Buster felt very like I did, very older brother syndrome. Like I did all of the work. I went to college. I was your poster boy. And yet at the end of the day,
he's still the one drinking and driving boats and
he's
having fun.
mommy's little boy.
Yeah.
Going out to the kennel with him, take care of his friend's dog. I think there was a lot of ire going on there. And I don't know about it, but like that's what I was seeing happen. And I was like, at the very least, I feel like Buster is more involved than we know. Second of all, I would ask the questions because I feel like Alex, that first 911 call, it sounds almost like he realized something at some point and hit click.
That's when he...
I think he put something together. And then, I don't know, something about it was very like, all of a sudden he's like, he's not lying about something. I felt like he wasn't lying, but also I was like, I don't know. So that's my question. My question is Buster involved at all?
That's an excellent question to ask.
And why didn't we investigate that?
All right. So next time, I'm looking forward to this one. So Hulu has a fascinating new show that I'm really looking forward to checking out. And it's called A Murder at the End of the World.
Yeah.
It's kind of a twist on the classic whodunit.
Yeah.
And it looks kind of like an intense game of Clue. I'm like, oh, this looks fun. And then I saw the main protagonist character is being called Gen Z Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, I can't wait.
I want to see this.
Yes.
So we're going to talk about that next time. Yep.
So get on it, watch it.
That's right. Watch it. Let us know what you think. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about it. And until then, be safe, be kind, and wash your hands. Bum, bum, bum. Da, 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 da.